wildlife photographer. I've gone from photographing in small clubs and pubs in Liverpool to traveling the world. In the last year I've switched to Nikon, and that's purely based on not just the photo qualities but the video qualities as well, and how easy it is to switch in between both of them, because in my job it's so run and gun, I have to constantly change between the two. I've seen a lot of creators come to Dubai, and I wanted to come and test out the Z6 here. There's been so many different shooting scenarios in Dubai. I've been shooting in small seaplanes, hot air balloons, in the desert, a live performance. Without the Z6, it just wouldn't have been possible. The Z6's autofocus has been really good at tracking cars, wildlife, performance on stage, and I haven't missed a single shot. The Z6's ability of shooting in low light has really impressed me.
Ladies and gentlemen, in and around the Nikon booth, we will start our live broadcast for this last day of PhotoPlus 2019 at 10:15 with Robin Layton. The power of personal projects right here at the Nikon Theater at 10:15.
Bigger camera, like being able to shoot full HD, 120p, slow motion, being able to get very cinematic looking shots. When I use an external recorder on a Z6, I can shoot 10-bit N-Log. Having N-Log footage means that when it comes to post, I can bring out all the details, be it clouds in the sky, you know, reflections in the buildings, so I can get the look exactly as I want when it comes to the grade. Using the Nikon Z lenses from when I've been using autofocus on them, it's been amazing to see that there's absolutely no breathing whatsoever. The mount adapter has allowed me to use all my f-mount lenses as well, which has been amazing, and all my long zoom lenses for the wildlife, and it gives me all the access to all the tools I use on a day-to-day basis. Having used the Z6 in Dubai and seeing what it can do, I'm really excited to use it on my next job.
I wanted to have the lights of Paris, clean background, pure lines, beautiful use of golden hour as well, and so it was really exciting for me to get the chance to shoot that with this new lens. I'm Chloé Lapessoni. I'm a French photographer specialized in weddings and portraits. When I shot with the 85, it's amazing compared to what I've been shooting, because the focus is extremely sharp, but also we have the bokeh, which is like super smooth. I didn't get any chromatic aberrations or fringe like I'd like, and I didn't get any ghost flare either, which was amazing because I don't have to deal with that in post-production. Good portraits for me is like being able to have a really nice bokeh and the sharpness when you want it and where you want it.
Optical performance is evolving to a whole new dimension. The Nikon Z mount. In pursuit of higher quality images, Nikon has realized a large inner diameter of 55 millimeters and a short flange focal distance of 16 millimeters.
Ladies and gentlemen, in 10 minutes, we're going to start our first program here at the Nikon Theater, our live broadcast out to Nikon Live with Robin Layton at 10:15. Also on the speaking schedule today, we have Ron Magill, Dixie Dixon, Joshua Cripps, Jade Alakija, Christy Odom, Jen Rosenbaum, Elizabeth Blank, and Dave Black closes out the show. We got a lot of education and information, as well as inspiration here for you at the Nikon Theater. We're going to get started in about 10 minutes.
That have never been experienced before. With the Z mount, higher flexibility in lens design is made possible. For example, a large diameter lens can be located near the image sensor. A lens with a large diameter is able to convey light rays to the image sensor with minimal forced refraction, which is difficult using a smaller diameter lens. The lower refraction contributes to less lens aberration, allowing users to attain much higher image quality. Because most Nikkor Z lenses feature symmetrical construction with a centrally positioned diaphragm, which is said ideal lens construction, incident light can be conveyed to the image sensor naturally with moderate refraction. Because the large diameter mount allows flexible layout within the lens barrel, various mechanisms can be incorporated to remarkably enhance lens performance. Evolved image expression is realized with improved lens performance. With the intensified sense of high resolution achieved using a larger diameter mount, even details at the periphery can be precisely reproduced. Via the adoption of a multi-focusing system, high-resolution images with minimal aberrations can be attained, even at the minimum focus distance. In addition, by suppressing sagittal coma flare that is usually difficult to control, point light sources can be faithfully reproduced as point images from maximum aperture. The large diameter Z-mount, developed in pursuit of higher image quality, opens the door to new image expression, while realizing next-generation lens performance.
Ladies and gentlemen, in and around the Nikon booth at 10:15, we will kick off our first program with Robin Layton, the Power of Personal Projects. She's going to talk to you about a personal project called The Lake and a book that accompanies that project right here at 10:15 at the Nikon Theater.
It's always a joy to be the assistant for somebody who is a peer. There's always something more to learn.
We're here in Los Angeles, and it's myself and 2 other inspiring photographers.
Well, actually 2 that are seriously amazing. I'm the hack that gets to hang out with them. 3 different perspectives.
The same model in one location.
In this amazing space.
And a lot of Nikkor lenses.
Each photographer using the same camera.
The Z6 is kind of my go-to camera.
Sees the same scene with different results.
Ladies and gentlemen, in and around the booth, come up and grab a seat. We're going to start our programming live broadcast, Nikon Live, right here with Robin Layton in 2 minutes, right here at the Nikon Theater.
For the majority of my shooting, it is my favorite lens for portraits.
The bokeh on that lens is just spellbinding.
The FTZ adapter means that I can add the Z6 to my kit with no problems because I can just keep all my lenses, like the 105-1.4 that I want to keep using. There, Vincent, you're perfect, don't move.
Charmy Pena absolutely cracks me up.
You're putting your Pilates to work right now.
I am. She did the best job focusing in on that subject and getting her to relax and have some fun.
Fish face, crossed eyes. Ready? One of the best ways to get people to be who they really are is to make them do something completely ridiculous. And when it all falls apart, they just are who they are. That was awesome.
See where it strips
there it is.
right into her eye.
Yeah. Can you tell me why you picked the lens you picked?
It's a 70 to 200 2.8. It's an F lens that will connect to my FTZ adapter. Zooms in my portrait work. It allows me to get the perspective that I want, and then I can come in and recompose.
Vincent is amazing.
So first day on the job, I take it.
Vincent's technique was so interesting, and it's nothing I would have ever thought of.
All I do is sing bad songs, tell bad jokes.
For 30 minutes, he's just talking to her.
You are a light unto yourself.
All of a sudden, he confesses.
I've got the camera system set up, doing facial recognition, follow focus. It's in silent mode. I have a remote in my hand, which usually sits right here. Have you figured out when I'm taking a picture yet?
What?
See, this is the magic.
You have a clicker.
He's got a clicker.
Yeah.
The absolute spontaneous photograph captures the essence of the person. Those are the moments that I love.
That was so good.
But do you see my point? It's about the reaction.
Go right between these 2 pieces right here. Can you just grab those curtains and I want some, whoa! Very nice, beautiful. Bambi
Cantrell is one of the finest portrait photographers I know.
The first lens that I'm going to be using is the 35mm 1.8. I am very comfortable photographing nice tight close-ups. I'd like to break out of that mold a little bit. This shoulder right here just kind of leaned towards me, but that's beautiful. Love it.
I would see her looking for layers and looking for what she wants.
Can you hold that with both hands? I want to get air in it.
Okay.
1, 2, 3, go. Nice, I'm telling you right now, girl. Hey, Vincent, can I get you to do this too? I don't need mountaintop scenery. To me, it's all about what's in here. Love it. And relax your hand. It looks like you're posing like a model.
Good morning and welcome to day 3 here at PhotoPlus Expo 2019. We got a wild crowd here already. People filling in so early in the morning. We're going to keep the education and inspiration going here. Thank you guys for tuning in on Nikon Live, whether it's Facebook or YouTube or the Nikon Live page. Welcome everybody. We got another full day of education and inspiration. A lot of great speakers today. And we're going to start off with somebody who I call my sister. Her name is Robin Layton. She's a Nikon ambassador. She's done many books over time. She was a photojournalist in Seattle. She's living in Seattle now. And she has a personal project called The Lake, in which she just did a book. And she's going to share some of that information about how she did this with you today. She actually has a really cool live event at Benaroya Hall in Seattle with Will Ackerman, who's a Grammy-winning guitarist, and her images and the book, The Lake, will accompany this amazing event. So without wasting any more time, let's kick off the great inspiration right here. Nikon Ambassador Robin Layton, The Lake, the power of personal projects.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mike, and thank you, Nikon, so much for having me here today, and thank you guys for coming. I really appreciate it. As Mike said, I'm a photojournalist, artist, and filmmaker, and I got my career starting out as a photojournalist. I was one of the lucky ones. I knew at age 15 what I wanted to do. I was sitting in my mom and dad's house in Richmond, Virginia, and I used to take pictures of ducks and rocks and trees, and one day I was looking through a National Geographic magazine. It was on my lap, and I was looking through the pictures. I went, wow, I'd give anything to take pictures like these. And my mom said, you know what? You can do that for a living if you want. And I literally took my hand, I slapped it on my knee, and I said, that's what I'm going to do. So at 15, I learned early on to follow that inner voice. And that's what I want to talk today about is the passion of personal projects. It kind of starts with following your inner voice and also finding something that you're very, very passionate about. So a week later, after I told my mom, this is what I'm going to do, I went to my guitar lesson, and the owner of the shop was there. He was never usually there. He happened to be there that day, and he said, hey, Robin, what do you want to do when you grow up? And I said, I'm going to be a National Geographic photographer. And he said, really? Did you know one of my students, their dad, is a National Geographic photographer? In fact, here comes his wife now, and it was David Allen Harvey's wife, Sue Harvey. And so anyway, they introduced me, and Sue took me under her wing, and she gave me her phone number and address, and David Allen Harvey lived 3 miles from me. So I met with Dave, and he mentored me, and he told me about going to Ohio University, the best school in the country for photojournalists. So I did. I became a photojournalist. I was a photojournalist for 16 years. I was the first female photographer ever hired at the Sandusky Register. But after doing this for 16 years, well, first of all, my job was to capture moments, right, every day in any kind of light. I did portraits, I did sports. My job was to capture moments and to come back every day in any kind of condition, any kind of light. This was a 100-year bicentennial celebration. So after doing photojournalism for 16 years, I'm going to get back to that point about following our inner voice. And I want everybody here to think about, if you had one dream, what would it be? Like, keep that in the back of your mind. Gosh, what would my life look like if I had one dream? Well, I knew inside it was time to close the chapter on being a photojournalist, and I did, and so I went freelance. And I got to do amazing things like photograph Oprah, Jennifer Aniston, Sarah Jessica Parker. They were all clients of mine for many, many moons. And I was doing personal projects for them. So in the middle of this freelance journey, I was at a friend's house in New Jersey, and I saw this picture of a basketball hoop, and it was framed in a really cool window. And I looked at it, and I thought, wow, if I could have one dream, it would be to be an artist. It would be that every day I would create art. And that dream was so big. If that's this dream, I put it way over there because I thought, oh, that's just too big. That's too good to be true, right? And I'm known for following my dreams. I'm a train. I do anything I set my mind out to. So it was kind of weird that I was like, that's just too big. So cut to 4 years later, my mom is dying of cancer. And I was holding on to her hand, and first of all, my mom was the most amazing artist I've ever seen. And I'm not saying it because she was my mom. It's the truth. She was really the most talented person I ever saw. And I remember holding onto my mom's hand when she was dying, and I said, I am not leaving this planet without finding the art inside of me. And at that moment, I decided I'm going to go for it. So I did. And I'm going to share two projects, mostly the lake, but the first one was my basketball book. I had this crazy idea of driving across America without a book deal and look for really cool hoops and childhood hoops of famous players. Well, right, how am I going to get interviews from, LeBron James, Shaquille O'Neal? But I literally rented a van, and I just went for it. It was a personal project. Nobody was paying me. I actually was paying to do it. So this was my second book. And it really changed my life because it opened up so many doors for me that I couldn't even imagine. It got me an exhibit in Seattle, the best gallery in Seattle on the West Coast, and it actually got me art commissions from clients. So now my art journey is starting. So my last book that Mike just showed you, The Lake, is my personal project of 10 years. So when you have a personal project, right, it doesn't matter how long it takes. It doesn't matter what it is. Nobody's your boss. You can decide how much time you want to spend on it. You can decide what the subject matter is. And I think it's really good for your soul because don't we all get excited when we are excited about doing something and then you start working on it and you start getting a collection of photos? This is me with my dogs on the top left in Seattle, shooting all kinds of weather, all kinds of days of time, and that's with some dogs and an underwater camera. So I start photographing the lake every day, and every day I see something different, right? I'm getting up early morning, 4:30, I'm doing late afternoon, And I thought, wow, in the back of my mind, my inner voice was telling me, wouldn't it be cool to do a book? Well, I already had 3 books. I know what it takes to do a book. So I just kept thinking about how cool it would be, but never did anything about it. And by the way, I'm the girl that's in the boat. My friends have boats. I don't have a boat. I'm the girl in the boat that's like, I'm not getting in the water. I'm not getting my hair wet. I have curly hair. That's a disaster, right? Well, when I decided a year and a half ago, I'm walking down the lake, and I'm fortunate enough that I live across the street from the lake. And I was walking my dogs, and I said, it's time to do a book. And I turned around and I said, who said that, right? And I realized, oh my gosh, it's time. And I followed that inner voice, and I followed the passion that I had in photographing this lake. And it's really hard to get something different in your backyard every day because you're seeing the same things. But for me, I was seeing something different every day, whether it was, the light on the leaf, or it was a duck coming at you, this is really challenging, but the best part about doing a personal project is it does push you. It does push you past your limits. But if you're passionate about it, it's pretty great, right? I bought an underwater housing for my D850. This is before the Z series came out. And again, I'm sitting in the water, I'm above the water, I'm underwater, I'm shooting on the shores. But wow, what a rush that I got when I got these pictures back, right? I've never, ever shot pictures those are called split water shots, my favorite to do. And I always drove by the lilies. I'm like, what is under there? I wonder what's really under there. So pushing yourself, finding something that you love. I love this one too. I had 2 hours to learn how to use this housing, and because my friends were going on their boat, and then like the baby ducks are out, I'm like, you gotta go. And so literally in 2 hours, I learned how to put the housing on the D850, and I just went for it. I got to be friends with the people at the rowing center. That's another thing. Find out where your passionate project is related to, and they really helped me. This is hard to do, right? I don't know where the boat's going to land. The oar actually skimmed the lens. And I love this picture because it's 3 women, and they're wearing pastel colors. Usually they're in black or gray or dark colors. This dog every day was with his owner, and the owner would do exercises on the pier, and then he'd throw the ball down the pier. Sometimes it'd go in the water. And I started shooting. This is actually with the Z7. The Z7 changed my life. I can actually see what I'm shooting through my viewfinder, and especially for video, right? You always would put the loop on the back, and that was tough. But now the Z series have changed my life, especially in video too. But anyway, I started working this. I started working it every day, and finally I got something that I really loved. Early morning, when everybody else was sleeping and cozying up, I was out there. And nobody was paying me. It's about pushing yourself. And yeah, it's hard. There's some days I'm like, I really don't want to go out there. But usually when I did, it paid off. This is really cool because it's, trees are usually high up in the air, right? Well, this particular bush was kind of low. And it's about seizing that moment because I went back the next day and it was gone. So I knew I had to work it. And I actually have video of this too, which you'll see at the end. I see a lot of people every day walking anywhere in life, but especially around this lake, and they're like this, right? They're not looking up. I would be walking my dogs, and there'd be an eagle flying by. I'm like, wow, look at that. And this runner, he's just in his zone. He's like, oh, he would stop. He goes, thank you for showing me. I really feel like people need to be more awake and be more aware of their surroundings, right? These are called coots, K-O-O-T-S, and I would notice that they would just swim together and then they would take off, and then they would swim together and they would take off. And as I got to know them and shoot them, I noticed 2 reasons they would do that. 1, an eagle was about to try to gobble one up, or 2, there would be a beaver in the water and it would make them want to go. So not only was I learning about different things along the lake, but I was learning what birds sound like. Now I know what eagles sound like, and robins and coots, and now I call these guys my models because there are I photograph birds quite a bit. This picture is huge in my house. I love this. And by the way, everything I've shown you, I've done in camera. I don't do any manipulation. It's all from my camera to the paper. So play with your camera, right? We don't have to always be so literal with the settings, everything. Just start playing. And everybody asks me, well, how do you do it? How do you actually get that effect? And I just say play. I don't have a formula. I just shoot with my heart and I just play. This particular morning was crazy because the only opening in the sky was the sun coming through this little circle of where the clouds separated. And it was one of those things where you look at and you go, is that for real? Is this really happening? And so I just pulled over and ran out and shot it. Again, the small little things in life, right? I love photographing single leaves too. With backlight, it's amazing how simple something is, but how beautiful it is. This is actually, remember I was talking about my dream of bringing that dream of being an artist? Well, actually, I'm happy and excited to share with you that right now I am a full-time 100% artist. This picture is hanging in a building in downtown Seattle. And my job right now is to create art for commercial buildings and private residences. That's what I do. Oh, thank you. That dream, don't be scared of it because look, we have one precious life to live, right? And if Susie can do it and Tommy can do it, why can't I? Why can't you? This is your life. This is your one chance to just find joy, whatever it is. If you like photographing cats, maybe you photograph cats and you donate them to the shelter. Maybe that turns into something. It doesn't matter. It's finding something that gives you that rush. I always say the minute I stop that rush is when I stop. But I'm getting a rush looking at these, not to be arrogant, but it makes me happy, right? I photographed so many rowers through this 10-year journey. It took me 10 years to get these pictures, and I got one frame like that. It's one of my favorites in the book. It's, again, just the best part about doing the personal project is you can keep getting better. You study your images. You learn, wow, how can I make this better? Even if I'm making a tag for a birthday present, my motto in life is, how can I make this better? And so I push myself every day, just push, push, push. And when it was snowing last year in Seattle, and everybody's all cozied up in their house and their warm blankets and me with my dogs, I'm out shooting in the snow, and I was so grateful because there's a few pictures in the book from the snow that I wouldn't have otherwise gotten. Again, early morning light, and I love the trees coming through the clouds. And again, it's not easy, but it's about persevering. It's about pushing yourself. Another morning, I actually became really good friends with this boy's mother, just chatting while we're watching the little boy paddleboard. Okay, this is a funny story. So I'm lucky enough to have a view from my house of the lake, and it was July 5th, and this beautiful strip of light popped out, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that is crazy. And I hear this, I'm like, oh no, wouldn't it be cool if a boat went through the thickest part of this strand of light? Well, not only did a boat go, but a skier, and there's a dog in the back of the boat. So that was extra bonus. I was driving to get coffee one day, and it was afternoon, and I was driving to the store, and I didn't have my camera with me, and I see this scene, right? And I turn around, and I was just bolt home, and I love this picture because everybody is freezing in this picture, but the only light in the whole picture is on these two boys, and I just love it because it just says the end of summer, and this is actually in the book as well. This is one of my favorite pictures from the lake series, and again, it's a split water shot. This was actually in my backyard, and I was just shooting some other pictures, and I was so tired, and you're dripping wet, you're starting to get cold, and the equipment is really, really heavy, and I see these geese hanging out. I'm like, oh, okay, push myself. I get back in the water, and they start freaking out, and I'm in there, and I just kind of hung with them. I just kind of let it just settle down and just relax, right? Just be in that scene. And a lot of times I would chase a scene, I'd see something, I'd go over there, or I'd go over here. I learned quickly, you kind of let it come to you. Pick a spot and let it come to you. And things will happen, and it takes a lot of patience. I'm not really good at patience. I'm good at persevering, but patience is not my strength. So this became, to me, the obvious cover because it was simple, it was clean, it was contemporary, and I thought people would be happy putting it on their coffee table book. And I took another risk too. This is a limited edition coffee table book. I only printed 2,000 copies. When it's gone, it's gone. And I wanted to have something that helps people see the lake differently. Maybe they would appreciate the lake in a whole different way. So for me, that was the obvious picture. Here's a picture of the book, and again, limited edition, 2,000 copies. And in the back of the book, I have a map of the lake and all the places that I shot. And so, of course, the first thing people do who live in Seattle is on the lake, they flip it to like, where's my spot? So I had to think about my audience too. So what's the secret of a personal project? Well, first thing I can say is follow your passion. I've been doing this since 1985. Yes, I'm old. And I still get that rush, right? I still get that feeling of, I think if anybody in this whole PhotoPlus, I think I'm the biggest Nikon fan ever. I would take anybody to the mat on that. And they have carried me through my career as a photojournalist till now and will forever be. And I just love my passion. I love my projects that I can find something that gives me that rush, that makes me want to get up in the morning. 2, find something that you love to do, so you'll do it, right? So you will finish it. We all have ideas. We all want to do a project. We all want to say, I'm not good enough, or I don't know how to do it. Well, you know what? You just do it. You just start. And once you start, you're going to get addicted. Maybe you've never shot video before. Now's the easiest time ever and the best time ever to shoot video. Maybe you just start small. I remember I did a video of my dog. It's called Something Good. And the D3S just came out. And I started doing clips of my dog, right? Just my dog, just a day of the life of my dog. And I put together a film. And Oprah's people called me and said, oh my gosh, we love this. Will you do films for us? And I'm like, oh, okay. And I went down and met with them, and they're like, come up with an idea and do something that you're passionate about. So I did, and I just started shooting nature. And actually, Oprah narrates one of my films on the lake. So you can't even begin the doors that are going to open for you when you find something that you really love. And again, believe in yourself. Follow that inner voice. We all have that inner voice, everybody in here, right? I know you guys are thinking right now, what would it be? What would it be that I do? What's that thing that gives me that rush? Well, believe in yourself. If Timmy can do it, you can do it. We can all do it, right? And doors will open for you that you will never, never believe. I want to tell you, I have a film that I want to show you. This is the end of my segment, but I want to tell you the story behind, this whole thing is talking about personal projects and about how things will be beyond your wildest dream. Well, I'm going to share you what this lake book has done already for me. It's gotten a ton of press, which is also lovely, right? People have come up to me and said, thank you. Thank you for doing this book. Thank you, because we see it every day. We love it. I didn't expect that, right? That to me gives me joy, and it makes me feel like I've done something good. But I want to share something with you that's the biggest day of my life is about to happen in 3 weeks. And truly, I was 21 years old, and I'm at Ohio University, and I heard this music by George Winston. Anybody know George Winston? Windham Hill? Yeah? Okay. So it's new age music, and he's a piano player. So I started buying George Winston CDs. And maybe it was cassette tapes back then. No, we'll say CDs. Maybe, yeah. And so I started listening to his music. Well, I got turned on to this musician that played on some of the samplers, and his name is William Ackerman. Well, he plays guitar, and he got into my soul. He got into my heart. And at 21, so personal projects you can think back to when you were younger. It doesn't have to be now. Think back to even your youth, right? At 21, my dream was to see William Ackerman play live. Think of a musician right now that you love, that you would love to see play live, that you haven't yet. So I never got to. We didn't have the internet back then. I couldn't look him up, and I never even read the paper. Yes, I worked there. You didn't hear me, boss, my old boss. But I just didn't, I never got to, right? So cut to last year, last October, I found out William Ackerman was coming to Seattle. And I was so excited. And the guitar player that kind of plays with him sometimes, we had become friends years earlier. And he goes, "Do you want to meet Will?" I'm like, "Are you kidding? And not only am I going to see Will play live, I'm going to meet him?" He's like, "Yeah." So I go early to the concert, and Will and I just went, we just connected. It was crazy. It was like two artists coming together. And he was just, I don't know, it was just an instant love, right? So afterwards, he's like, "Hey, you want to get a drink after the concert?" I'm like, "Yeah, that'd be amazing." I go, "Do you want to come to my house for a drink?" And he goes, "Yeah." Okay, so you got that musician in your head that you love, and now you've met them, and you're having this connection. They're coming to your house, and so luckily I lived a mile away, and so I run to the grocery store and I'm getting wine and I'm throwing everything in there, and I get back to my house and I'm cutting up food because I figure they're starving, right? And so I text Todd, his guitar player, and I said, "Tell me when you're on your way." He goes, "We're in your driveway." I'm like, "You're in my driveway? Oh my gosh, here comes William Ackerman. He's walking into my house." So we had a lovely evening, and we became quick and fast friends. So now, this past February, I get one of my personal project crazy ideas, right? And my idea is, what if Will Ackerman and I did a concert together? That's crazy, right? And that's what I want to tell you guys. Think big, right? If you reach for the moon, you even land amongst the stars, you're still good, right? So I thought, wow, wouldn't it be awesome if Will Ackerman could play live and have videos of mine playing in the background, right? So I call him. "Hey, I got this crazy idea." He goes, "I don't know what the heck you're talking about, but I love you and I love your work. Let's do it." Okay, how many people in this room have actually put a concert together? Like, where do you start? Again, it's that fear that keeps us from doing things, right? I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna dive in. So I get a list of 10 places in Seattle. I call the Triple Door, I call all these places, the library, and I don't know how to put on an event. Well, the third phone call was to the Triple Door. And I said to the guy, "This is my idea," and he goes, "Huh?" And took him a second, he goes, "Why don't you send me a pitch?" Send me a pitch, and I'm actually going over to Benaroya Hall, which is our Carnegie Hall. It's like where the Seattle Symphony plays, right? I'm like, well, that's the dream. Are you kidding? Oh my gosh. So I put together a PDF and sent it to him. 2 months goes by. It's crickets. I'm emailing, nothing. I'm emailing like, "Oh, we're getting tight on time," because my date that I really wanted was November 21st. It's the Thursday before Thanksgiving. I figured everybody would still be in town. So 2 months goes by, nothing. Finally, I get this email. "Hey, Robin, it's not going to happen." What? What do you mean? No. And this goes back to believing yourself. See, the joke with my friends, they say is, when you hear no, it actually means yes to me, right? So when I believe in something, I don't let it deter me. When I really know in my heart this is supposed to happen, it happens. So I said, wait. Before you say no, I just finished this film, the one I'm about to show you. I just finished this film that I did with Will Ackerman's music and my footage. And it's of the lake. He goes, "All right." So 2 days later, I get this email. Well, things have turned around here. Congratulations, you've got November 21st. And I even got chills talking about this, and so I emailed back, wait, is this happening? Is this really, you're telling me right now that this has happened? And he goes, "Yeah." So I pick up the phone. "Are you telling me right now this is happening?" I couldn't believe it. So I want to end my program with the video that started with the lake, 10 years of shooting it, and here I am talking to you about this. Thank you so much for listening to me and coming today. And now I'm having the biggest night of my career in 3 weeks. So this is called The Lake. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Robin Layton, what amazing passion. Thank you so much. All right, sit tight because it's going to get even better. If that wasn't great enough, we're going to make a quick transition to change up programs, and then we're going to bring to the Nikon Theater a gentleman who is an incredible wildlife photographer, zoologist, Ron Magill. So give us a couple of minutes to change over the set, grab a seat, and we'll make the official intro. Hello again. We are rocking day 3 here at PhotoPlus Expo 2019. I don't want to waste a second of time here. Let me introduce to the Nikon stage, Nikon Ambassador, wildlife expert, Ron Magill.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Well, I'm a bit of a fish out of water up here, to be honest with you, because throughout this whole show, you guys have seen photographers that do just incredible things with their images. I am not a photographer by trade in the beginning. I'm a zoologist. I'm a biologist. My whole goal, my whole life is working with wildlife, trying to conserve wildlife. And the option is to use photography to do that. I became a photographer actually by force. And that is because I would write a bunch of papers to get them published, to try to protect wildlife, to try to get people to understand about conservation. When I submitted the articles, they'd say to me, well, we need some photographs. I said, okay. So I called the stock agencies, asked for some photographs. And they'd show me the photographs, and they saw how much it was. And I said, what are you, out of your mind? I can't afford that. So I said, with the money I'd pay for these stock photographs, I'll just buy my own camera. I've never taken a photography class in my life. I'm kind of self-taught. I basically just went out there to try to capture things to augment my work, my stories for magazines and books to get them published. My whole goal in life is to protect animals. So whereas today you have seen just beautiful images throughout this whole show, you've seen people doing incredible things with light, Jerry Guyonis, Diane Fitzmaurice, Carol Guzzi, documentary stuff, just incredible photographs. I'm going to actually show you some photographs today that are really bad. They're terrible. I don't take photographs to frame them and put them on the wall, okay? I take photographs to get people to care about wildlife, to connect people to wildlife. I was born not too far from here. I grew up in a small apartment in Jackson Heights. My father was a Cuban immigrant. My mother, the daughter of a Colombian immigrant. We moved down to Miami, Florida when I was 12 years old, but my passion was always about wildlife. And today I got a real issue with what I'm seeing like on television. You know, when I was a kid, some of you may remember, there was one show, 7:30, Sunday night, right before The Wonderful World of Disney, Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom. That was church to me, man. I watched that show religiously. That show inspired me. That show taught me to love wildlife, to care about wildlife. Today I'm watching a lot of these shows and we're into sensationalizing wildlife. All I'm hearing now is like, when animals attack, the world's deadliest, the river monsters. Listen, if I'm a kid watching that stuff on television today, I'm not going to go out and explore to learn anything because I'm afraid something's going to kill me. So my thing is, I want to teach people to not be afraid of animals. I want to teach people to respect animals, to want to learn more about animals. So that's where I use photography to do that. I've been so lucky to travel all around the world. This year alone, I did a documentary in Antarctica. I was in the Pantanal. I've been to Mexico. I mean, I've done so many different things, doing different trips. I'm going to show you 3 of those different things that we did on conservation. But the point is, I need to connect people to care about wildlife. So that's what I use images for. I don't care. I'm not going to say I don't care, but I don't look at an image and go, well, there's the rule of thirds. Oh, it's got to be tacked sharp on the edges. How's the color blend here? Does that go with the color wheel? No! My thing is, when you look at the image, are you learning something? Are you learning to connect to that animal? So that's the main thing I want to say. Another thing is, you know, when I walk around this show, Nikon's probably not going to be happy with me saying this, but listen, the majority of you people aren't here to spend $5,000 on a body and another $5,000 on a lens. People are going, oh, you know, these are great photographs and stuff, but I can't afford that equipment. Nikon has some incredible equipment, especially for wildlife stuff. And I'm going to give you a prime example here. One of the biggest things we worry about in wildlife is the zoom. How do we get close to these animals? Guys, there's a camera for under $1,000 that I took out on a whim. This is me doing some work with jaguars. Here's this tree. I'm tracking these jaguars, and my radio collar tracking is telling me there's a jaguar in that tree. You see the jaguar in the tree, but you can't get really close, but you don't want to scare the jaguar away. It's a wild animal. So what am I going to do? I got this great thing. It's called the Nikon P1000. You'll see it back there. It's a cool Pix camera. I'm sitting here. I'm not moving. I'm in the vehicle. I'm not moving. See the jaguar yet? Look close. Oh, how about now? I'm still not moving. I'm just using the digital zoom. And not a digital zoom, optic. It's optic zoom. How about now? Oh, and I'm still going in. How about now? Oh, I haven't moved my camera yet, folks. And I'm not done yet. How about now? That's one camera. P1000, under $1,000. It's got a 3,000 millimeter zoom on it. I'm hand holding this baby. Okay, now listen, this is not a camera you're going to shoot the Milky Way with. Okay, but if you're out there in daylight and you got wildlife, especially for birds, man, get this camera. This camera, I'm telling you, this camera is the bomb. I don't know why Nikon is just promoting the heck out of it, because this thing is the bomb. I love this thing. For birds especially, you know, I'm one of those guys. You ever been out with those birders? If there's some birders in the audience, please, no offense taken. But you guys will stop for some little brown job that's 100 yards away forever going, oh my God, if I can't fill the frame with my camera, I don't want to take a picture of it, okay? This is what I want to talk about. You think that's close? This is what you want to do. You can get really, really close. That's the optimal zoom. That's 3,000 millimeters handheld with a P1000, okay? It's a great camera, folks. It's under $1,000 and it's all in one. So think about that, because I think a lot of you guys are just basically, you want to go out and enjoy wildlife, you want to photograph wildlife, you want to take stories, you can frame these pictures, they look great, and you don't have to spend $20,000 to get close to them. All right? Point made on that. All right, now let me talk about this jaguar. I was out in the Pontonal, and we were doing some work, and it was an incredible, incredible job. This company is called On Safari, and what they've done is, anybody who's wanted to go out to track jaguars, they usually send you out to the rivers. You're always on a boat, and you're on a river, and when you see a jaguar, there's like 30 boats. If anybody's been on safari in Africa, you know, you see a pride of lions in the Masai Mara, and you got 14 vans around the lion. That sucks. I don't want to be there with all these vans around there. I want to be getting exclusive stuff. But they could only do that because you can't. Jaguars are so secretive, you can't get close to them. They're not like the lions in the Mara. They're not like, you know, the animals that you're used to in Africa that are habituated. But now they're working in the Pontonal in Brazil with this job called On Safari. And what they've done is they've radio collared a couple of these jaguars, and they've actually taken some of the trackers who work tracking leopards in Africa, a place called Landolozi. They flew them down to Brazil to learn how to track these jags, and they put radio collars on a couple of jags so we can track these jaguars. This young lady, Victoria, what an incredible biologist. You work with these people, they're out there tracking these jaguars, because folks, you will never find the jaguar unless you're able to track them and start learning their habits. So we get the radio collar, we say, okay, it's here someplace. You're looking all over the place. You go, oh my God, where's the jaguar? I can't see it anywhere. Everybody's looking. You don't look. Beep, beep, it's there. I don't see it. It's there. It's not there. I just see a bunch of trees. Look harder. And all of a sudden you look through and you realize it's looking right at you. Okay? And that radio collar is what gave it away. Now a lot of people say, well, I don't want to photograph an animal with a radio collar. But here's the deal. If you got a female with a radio collar and she's an estrus, you're going to get a male without a radio collar, because females bring males to them. You start getting more animals coming to you. So this is the great thing. Now, if you're lucky, you see one walking out in the wild, walking out in the open. Then it's easy to spot. But the great thing about this program is you're on the interior. You're not just seeing the jaguars on the riverbank and in the river. You're seeing them in the interior. There's a big problem going on in Brazil right now with jaguars eating cattle. You heard about all the big fires in the Pontonal recently. Those fires are not caused by lightning. They're not natural fires. Those fires are caused by farmers and ranchers burning down the forest to raise cattle. So there's a huge conflict with cattle and jaguars. Using this program, we've learned to mitigate these jaguars, learn their behavior, and teach these cattle people how to live with the jaguars. If a jaguar doesn't have a radio collar, folks, trust me, if it's in the brush, you'll never see it. Look at this. This guy here. Do you think if you're driving or you're walking through, you're going to see him? Believe me, you're not. You see him because you know he's in the frame now. But I can tell you, these animals are amazing at the way they blend in with their environment. Now, the good thing about jaguars is, you always heard cats. Cats don't like water. And it's true, most cats do not like water. You've got some exceptions. You've got tigers will get in the water in India quite a bit. Some lions in Botswana, the Okavango lions, they're amazing, man. They go swimming. I've seen them kill buffalo in the water. But if you go to any place else in Africa, you see a lion in the Masai Mara step in a puddle, and he's got like cooties. He's like, he don't want to touch the water. But the jaguar's a water cat, man. The jaguar loves water, and that's where you find him along the riverbanks. You see him. That picture's out of focus. It stinks, but I love the way he's looking at me, okay? When they come out is when you see them along the riverbank. When you see that majestic animal like this come out, and I'm like, oh my God, it's like, I can't explain it to you folks. I photographed so many things in the wild, but to see a jaguar come out in the wild, and then if you're really lucky, and you're on the river, and all of a sudden you look at the river, you see one, it's crossing the river, it's swimming in front of you. This thing is swimming, you go, oh my God, it's crossing the river. You get up close to it, it's crossing the river, you get really close, and then it turns around, and it looks right at you. Oh man, this goes right through you. You see those little freaking horse flies? I hate those things. They stung me all over the place. I'm trying to take pictures. That's why these guys get in the water a lot, because the flies can't get them in the water. But this is an incredible feeling. You got this animal swimming, coming right at you. The boat's moving, so everything's moving, so you can't really get a tack sharp shot. But I love that picture, because I remember that picture. Listen, folks, my favorite saying in the world is this. Life is not measured by the number of breaths that you take. It's measured by the number of times your breath is taken away. When you're hanging over a boat water level and 20 feet in front of you, a jaguar swimming at you, it takes your breath away. You never feel more alive than when you're closer to death. It's the fantastic feeling. And that's a myth. This jaguar's not going to attack me. He's curious. But you watch him. You watch him in the water. You watch him stalking. So the water's great. But I wanted to see jaguars up in trees. You can't really see them up in trees unless you go in the interior. So we go in the interior. I got my radio collar lady. We're tracking jaguars. And all of a sudden I say, there's one up in the tree. And you look, you don't see it. But then all of a sudden, bam, it's in the tree. It's looking at you in the tree. And then you get relaxed. You see him blanch out of the tree looking at you. Man, I'm telling you, folks, this is what you want to do. I say to myself, photography is what I use to get people connected to these animals. If there was one wish I had, I wish I could take every kid for 5 minutes, take their hand and put them in a spot like this so they can see these animals, see the way they sit in these areas, the way they look at you. It's one of the most majestic feelings you'll ever have to look at these animals. The great thing about today's cameras too, though, is the light sensitivity. Again, these pictures are not going to be tack sharp, but to be able to have a jaguar walking up at you, because we can't use flash. You don't want to use any kind of flash, so I use a flashlight. But with a flashlight, I can get a jaguar walking up to me and looking at me like that. You don't forget this. You don't forget this stuff when you have a jaguar looking at you when it's drinking the water, looking great. Okay, now, I'm going to show you a series of pictures that are absolutely horrific. I shot them like at 102,000 ISO. There's more noise in there. It looks like a flipping blizzard is going on. But here's the great thing about this. It's not the image, but what you'll be seeing in the image. Because all of a sudden we're out at night, and we hear, ooh, ooh. And look, it's a jaguar coming out, okay? And this isn't even the worst image. I said, oh my God, there's a jaguar. What's he going after? We follow him, and there's another jaguar on a kill with a collar. Look at all that noise, horrible. It's going to get even worse. Okay, so I'm saying, oh my God, 2 jaguars on a kill. This is unheard of, because normally jaguars are solitary animals. They're never known to share a kill. So that's what's going on here. Oh, they get a little ticked off at each other. They face each other. Oh, this is great. I'm going, oh my God, I got 2 jaguars on a kill. This is unheard of. Photographing this stuff. And then you know what happens? A 3rd jaguar comes in there. This is huge. Think about this, folks. 3 jaguars on 1 kill. They fight a little bit. Oh, all that stuff's going on. But you know what? They settle down. You got a horrible image here that you would never frame, do anything with. But when I talk to conservationists, when I talk to zoologists, and I say, yes, jaguars will share kills. Jaguars, we learn about their behavior. We learn how they can coexist. That's where an image can help you to protect such a majestic animal. So these are the things I try to point out. It's not all about the beauty of an image to hang up on a wall. It's the moment that you catch in the image. What are you trying to convey? What are you trying to get people to do? So we talked about jaguars. We talk about protecting rhinos and elephants and jaguars. Those are the megavertebrates. How about the lesser known animals? Was conservation important to them too? Absolutely. Look at the hyacinth macaw. This is the largest type of parrot in the world. Incredibly rare. This parrot became endangered basically when they used it as a pet. It was known in the pet market. This bird, would cost about $10,000 to $20,000 each. okay? They were pillaging them out of the wild. There's this incredible group in Brazil that I worked with doing this conservation program with the hyacinth macaws. When they started this program, just less than a decade ago, there were less than a few hundred of these macaws in that wild area. Hyacinths are beautiful birds. They're the largest of all the parrots. They're monogamous. They breed for life. They pair for life. You cannot tell the difference between a male and a female just by looking at them, except at a certain time of the year. And this is the time, the breeding season, when they're laying their eggs. Why? The female is the bird closer to me on the right. The male is on the left. The female, you can tell the difference. You see the curvature in the tail? It's because when she sits in the nest, she's sitting on eggs. The tail curls up in the hole of the tree. That's how you tell the females from the males right away when you look at them in the wild. So this is the group that's doing the work with them, a fantastic group. This is what they've done. They've created these boxes, that they make these boxes that duplicate the trees with the holes in them. And the parrots have learned to nest in them. And you see that tin that goes on the bottom of the nest boxes? Why do you think that's there? That's right, because cats, ocelots, margays, they climb up the tree, they go into the nest, they eat the chicks. So we've learned to put that tin around there. We've got the nest, and the birds love it. They've learned to go in there. They say, oh, this is like it's like a build-a-house. We got it all built. We don't have to build it ourselves. It's fantastic. We got to constantly fix them up because these birds will destroy all the wood around there. But folks, the conservationists working on these projects, the most dedicated group of women I have ever seen. These are all young ladies between 20, 30 years old. They do incredible work. They climb on these trees by themselves. They set up these boxes. They go up and they inspect the boxes. They do a wonderful, wonderful program with these animals. If they look in the box, they look real closely in the box. Once the eggs are laid, they make documentation. They examine the eggs. If there's a chick in there, they then get the chick. That chick is 2 days old. 2-day-old macaw chick. Now, you think we're going in the nest, right? The parents are going to get ticked off. Rah, 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 and they do. They scream. They go crazy. But they usually stay away from the tree. Sometimes they do these little flybys, and they try to, but they don't really come at you. I'm going to give you an exception in a little while. So they're going, rah, rah, rah. We climb up in these trees, and some of them are really high, in the middle of nowhere. So these girls are great. They set up all these ropes. They use these lines. They do all this on their own. There's 3 girls working on this, 3 ladies, I should say. And man, they climb. They're unbelievable. The conservation work they're doing out there. They climb up into these trees. This girl's amazing. I've never seen anybody climb trees like she does. Goes up into the nest, examines the nest. There's the natural hole. When you see her go up into these nests, folks, I'm telling you, she's like a Cirque du Soleil. She gets up. She does all these crazy things up there. Looks like she's doing a little flippy thing. This particular nest had a female that was out of her mind. She did come after us. They were looking at a while, and all of a sudden, I'm right below her photographing her, getting the stuff, getting the chick, and this bird comes at me, just, woo, and dive bomb. I don't know, until you've gotten dive bombed by a hyacinth macaw, you know, and this bird came right at me. He's like, here's going a little out of focus because he's going right up in the lens, going, woo, like that. And I'm like, oh, crap. And at the very last second, it turned away. But again, your heart's beating, man. You feel so alive. You're in here. You understand these animals are just trying to protect their chicks. But this girl's doing a fantastic job. She's out there. She's collecting, reaching down, grab the chick. This chick's a little older. You'll see when we pull it out. There he is. Now, I want you to look at her face here. This is an image she's got blown up, okay, because she knows this says what they're talking about. It's protecting these animals. What we have to do is we have to protect these animals. There's another saying, folks. It says, we have not inherited this earth from our parents. We are borrowing it from our children. We have an obligation to make sure these animals are there. I cannot look at my kids years from now with a straight face if I haven't done everything I can to protect these animals, to ensure that they see the same things I was able to see, and their children after that. That's where photography helps, because we can document this stuff. We can connect people like you who might not be able to be there to understand the importance of what they're doing. So she takes the bird down, and then we do all kinds of exams on the bird. Here you see the pin feathers coming out. It's starting to mature very well fed, as you can tell, very full crop, full belly. We take all kinds of exam pictures, document all this stuff. She's examining for external parasites here. They get these parasites to kill them. So if we see the parasites, we document them photographically. We wear the bird, examine every internal part of the bird. All the weights are taken. It is a fantastic, fantastic project. When that project started, there were less than a few hundred of these macaws in the Pantanal area. Now there are a few thousand of these macaws because of the work they're doing, because of all of this, just people getting together like a team. And that's what I want to get across to you. That's my job. My job is to make you understand how important, folks. Folks, you've probably heard the UN released a report not too long ago that says if we continue on the path we're continuing on now, 1 million species of animals will become extinct in the next 50 years. 1 million species! You have to understand, no matter what the species is, we're all connected. We're all connected. You take out one link, it softens the chain. So, on that note, I want to tell you about one of my favorite projects that I covered this past year, and that is the amazing monarch butterflies. Dudes, I'm sure here in New York you've seen monarch butterflies. Do you know how amazing these insects are? Because I really didn't know until I got to studying them. Here's the deal, folks. Monarchs have the single greatest migration of any insect on Earth. I'll tell you, when you look at monarchs, people don't understand. They think it's just a butterfly. For many years, they'd look at these monarchs and they'd say, oh, here they are at the time of spring and then they're all gone. Where do they go? People just assume they died. Wrong! They didn't just die. They went somewhere. This is what's really cool about it. People ask, well, how do you tell the difference between a male and a female butterfly? I'm going to give you a little sex lesson right now. Here's a female butterfly. The female has the broad stripes here, broad veins in the wings. The male has little skinny veins with little dots. That's the only difference between male and female. So now you know how to tell the difference. Okay, back to this great story about the monarchs. These monarchs would disappear. Come the fall, they disappear. Then everybody assumed they died, but they didn't die. Everybody knew they didn't die. They were moving down south. Where did they go? Nobody knew. Finally, in 1976, August, the cover of the National Geographic magazine was a photograph that changed the fate of the monarch butterfly. It's the monarch, Mexican haven, discovered. This is what was happening to these monarchs. These monarchs would start in a little mountain range in Michoacan. They'd fly up, they lived for 5 weeks, they lay their eggs, and they died. The next generation would hatch out, fly a little further north into the central part of the country, lay their eggs, and they die. The next generation would fly a little further north, live for 5 weeks, lay their eggs, and die. The last generation that hatches out like in southern Canada lives for 8 to 9 months. And they fly all the way from southern Canada down to Mexico, over 2,000 miles. A bug. A bug is flying over 2,000 miles onto the same mountain range that their great-great-grandparents started this epic journey on, and nobody knew how. How did they find their way down there? That's what's great. And let me tell you what happened. When this article came out, it changed the world in central Mexico for these folks. Michoacan all of a sudden became a destination. All the towns, it was butterfly capital of the world. Where were these butterflies going? They were going to the tops of these trees. The Oyamel forest. These trees are 100 feet tall, folks. Beautiful, gorgeous trees. But before it was discovered that this was the wintering hayline for monarchs, what was happening to those trees? They were cutting them all down. Everything was being cut down. And they realized, oh my God, the monarchs were starting to disappear. All of a sudden, people coming, tourism, people wanted to take photographs of the monarchs. We got something to save here. So they made these reserves. And Rosario is probably the best well-known one there. An incredible place, butterflies everywhere. And what they did was, after they opened the Rosario and people started coming, they said, this is good business for us, man. People are coming to see the butterflies. Normally, nobody came to this part of Mexico. So we got to do things. World Wildlife Fund went in there. They started a whole replanting thing. All the Oyamel fir trees that they were being cut down, they recycled all of them. Oh, I got time. Okay. They recycled all of them. All of a sudden, you saw signs everywhere. People are opening up businesses. It's great. People are buying stuff now to come see these butterflies. Fantastic. Look at this. All kinds of paintings everywhere, arts in the shops everywhere. So what was this reserve like? You go up, and it's incredible. It's up 10,000 feet up. You go up, it's cold. It's really, really cold. The time to see the butterflies is at the end of February, beginning of March, when they start coming up. They start arriving. This is a great story because they disappear here in autumn, right? They start arriving at the end of October, beginning of November in Mexico, which is what they call their Day of the Dead. The Day of the Dead is their Halloween celebration, but it's not a macabre celebration. It's a happiness celebration. The Day of the Dead is signified the monarchs returning, and each one of those monarchs to the Mexican people represents a lost spirit of a loved one who has passed away and is coming back. So this is beautiful tradition they have when the monarchs arrive. It's this big celebration. These are all of our ancestors coming back to bless us. We go up in these trees, but it's freaking cold. So I go up, we're walking up, and you look up at these trees, and you see all those things up there. I go, well, where are the butterflies? It goes up there. I go, I don't see anything. I see a bunch of dead leaves. That's a bunch of dead leaves up there, right? No, they're butterflies. There are hundreds of thousands of butterflies all pegged together. This is my sun. It is freaking freezing. There's ice. There's ice on all the little branches. And we're saying, how are those butterflies alive? There's thousands and thousands of them all huddled up. How are they alive? You look at them. They're not moving. They look like they're frozen dead. You think if you touch them, they're going to crack like ice. No! They're all huddled up together. Not even vibrating. It looks like they're dead. The pictures don't do it justice. There's some that have fallen to the floor. They will die. The floor is littered with thousands and thousands of dead butterflies. But now, this is the beauty. All of a sudden, the sun starts coming up. And as the sun starts coming up, you see the dapple light come and the heat comes up. And the butterflies start going, oh, light. And their wings are like solar panels. And they start to open them. You start seeing the color. And you start seeing this whole forest comes to life. It's like unbelievable. And you start seeing them fluttering. And on the barks is the light. The barks of the trees, you never see even the trunk of the tree. It's like scallop butterflies all in the trunk of the tree, waiting for the light. And as the light hits them, they're fluttering like this. You see butterflies start crawling to the edge of the limbs to try to get as much sun as they can. Remember I said, how do these butterflies fly from southern Canada all the way down to central Mexico and know how to get to that mountain, a place they've never been to in their entire life? It's not like the sea turtles. You know, they hatch, they leave. 20 years later, they come back to the same beach. They hatch that. Well, they hatched there, so they got some kind of response. These butterflies have never been there. How did they get there? Well, they used the sun as a compass to get into Mexico. But how did they get to that mountain range? A professor that I studied under realized that in each one of these cells on a monarch butterfly's wings is filled with magnetite. That mountain range that they go into is the transvolcanic belt of Mexico, packed with iron ore. They are literally magnetized into that mountainside. This is cool stuff, okay? This is incredible what wildlife does. So this is how we found out. We see these butterflies come out, and you see them come to life, folks. And then all of a sudden, they're flying everywhere. I just get on my back, and I look up, and the sky is filled with butterflies everywhere, to the point where you can hear them flying. Have you ever heard a butterfly flutter? They should call them flutterflies, because it's fantastic to hear that, to see them going. They come down to get nutrients from the flowers below. You cannot stop taking pictures. I know this is all just butterflies, but folks, it's incredible to look at them. They're feeding on every nectar plant everywhere in the world. And you say to yourself, okay, Ron, so this is great. I mean, what's so important about these butterflies? All these people are coming now to see them. There is an economic engine. Thousands of people come. Everybody wants to take pictures of all the butterflies flying everywhere. They're everywhere. Let me tell you the importance of these butterflies. They're pollinators, folks. They pollinate all kinds of plants, different types of things. Without those pollinators, eventually you're going to start paying like $25 for a tomato, okay? We need to look at the connection all these animals have to us. Then in the middle of the day, I realized all these butterflies are starting to go down into a gully. I'm going, where are they going? Where are they going? They're going down to get a drink. They're going down the riverbed, and they're all huddled down the river, and they're getting a drink. Man, I tell you, you lay down on a carpet, as far as you can see, it's nothing but butterflies. I'm laying on my belly. I'm looking at these butterflies. I'm going, where am I here? Okay, I got 2 minutes. And I'm like, oh my God, you look at the stuff, you say, butterflies everywhere. This is one of the greatest moments of nature you could ever experience, to be down there, to look at these animals, all over the butterflies. Here I am on my butt. I'm sitting there with my little camera, just go, oh my God, damn, I didn't realize how bald I was. But this is fantastic. So you look at this and you go, this is fantastic. As far as you can see, folks, hundreds of thousands of butterflies. During this migration, there were 100 million butterflies. This was just this past year, the single greatest migration in the last 15 years, because people are starting to plant milkweed again. People are doing things to help these butterflies out. It's working. You can make a difference, okay? Then, amongst all the dead butterflies, I noticed something. I go, what's this? It's a butterfly, and it's got a tag! A tag on a butterfly! Well, this is how we learn about what these butterflies do. You call that number, I call that number. That butterfly that died in Michoacan, Mexico, actually got tagged in Detroit, Michigan. Detroit flipping Michigan. Now, I'd want to fly the hell out of Detroit too, but this is an incredible trip to go all the way down to Michoacan, okay? Think about this, folks. I just want you to put the value on nature, on the things that nature can do. That's what I take photographs for. I don't take photographs, again, to hang them up on a wall. I take photographs to show you the beauty of these animals, to be able to look up and look as high as these trees can go. And I'm on my back here, just with the water, just shooting up and going, I've died and gone to heaven. This is an incredible feeling. And then as the sun starts to set, you start seeing them all fly back in again. the sun starts flying in, the sun starts going down, they're all going in for the night because the nighttime is going to get below freezing again. How does an insect live below freezing? Because they all congregate together, they conserve heat that way. And as the last bit of light goes away, it's nighttime and it's over. And the whole process starts again until about the beginning, mid-March to April, they start flying up north again. Folks, this is the beauty of nature. I want you all to understand you have no reason to be afraid of wildlife. All you need to do is learn to respect it. If you learn to respect wildlife, you never have a reason to be afraid of it. An investment in protecting this wildlife, using images like this to connect people to wildlife, is an investment in ourselves. We need these animals for our own quality of life. Thank you very much for your time. I did it right on time, look at that.
Ladies and gentlemen, Ron Magill. All right, we're going to take a 15-minute break from broadcasting, and we're going to come back with the incredible fashion photographer and director, Dixie Dixon, coming up next in 15 minutes.
I did not expect this. An ultralight and compact super telephoto. My job takes me to some pretty remote places, and the weight of my backpack is always something I have to take into consideration. But I'll choose heavy over lack of performance any day, so I really wanted to see what this lens could do. I couldn't think of a better testing ground for performance than photographing birds. Photographing animals is a lot like photographing people. Body language and gesture are essential. I'm not interested in photographing them perched. In flight is where the action is. But it's a patience game, and when the moment presents itself, the last thing you want to do is miss the shot. This lens is ridiculously easy to handhold, and Nikon's technology makes it not only ultra light, but razor sharp. If I needed an extra focal length boost, the ability to switch to DX mode in my Nikon D850 changes my focal length to roughly 750 millimeters, without decreasing the speed of the lens. The last thing I want to worry about is durability. The dust and drip resistant build keeps me confident that the lens will hold up in hard outdoor conditions.
Hello, guests in and around the Nikon booth. If you want some live instruction, we've got it happening right now at our shooting stations with Christy Odom and Joey Terrell. Visit the shooting stations for live instruction.
Category. It's something I want in my backpack, anywhere I go.
My name is Conor McDonald. I'm from Liverpool, England, and I am an entertainment and wildlife photographer. I've gone from photographing in small clubs and pubs in Liverpool to traveling the world. In the last year, I've switched to Nikon, and that's purely based on not just the photo qualities, but the video qualities as well, and how easy it is to switch in between both of them, because in my job, it's so run and gun, I have to constantly change between the two. I've seen a lot of creators come to Dubai and I wanted to come and test out the Z6 here. There's been so many different shooting scenarios in Dubai. I've been shooting in small seaplanes, hot air balloons, in the desert, a live performance. Without the Z6, it just wouldn't have been possible. The Z6's autofocus has been really good at tracking cars, wildlife, performers on stage, and I haven't missed a single shot. The Z6's ability of shooting in low light has really impressed me. On this shoot, I haven't used a single external light, and I wouldn't have been able to do that without the Z6. And it won't just help me, but it'll help anyone that shoots video solo. Features that I'd normally expect on a much bigger camera, like being able to shoot full HD, 120p, slow motion, being able to get very cinematic looking shots. When I use an external recorder on a Z6, I can shoot 10-bit N-Log. Having N-Log footage means that when it comes to post, I can bring out all the details, be it clouds in the sky, you know, reflections in the buildings, so I can get the look exactly as I want when it comes to the grade. Using the Nikon Z lenses from when I've been using autofocus on them, it's been amazing to see that there's absolutely no breathing whatsoever. The mount adapter has allowed me to use all my f-mount lenses as well, which has been amazing, and all my long zoom lenses for the wildlife, and it gives me all the access to all the tools I use on a day-to-day basis. Having used the Z6 in Dubai and seeing what it can do, I'm really excited to use it on my next job.
I wanted to have the lights of Paris, clean background, pure lines, beautiful use of golden hour as well, and so it was really exciting for me to get the chance to shoot that with this new lens. I'm Chloé Lapessoni. I'm a French photographer specialized in weddings and portraits. When I shot with the 85, it's amazing compared to what I've been shooting because the focus is extremely sharp, but also we have the bokeh, which is like super smooth. I didn't get any chromatic aberrations or fringe like I would like, and I didn't get any ghost flare either, which was amazing because I don't have to deal with that in post-production. Good portraits for me is like being able to have a really nice bokeh and the sharpness when you want it and where you want it.
Optical performance is evolving to a whole new dimension. The Nikon Z mount. In pursuit of higher quality images, Nikon has realized a large inner diameter of 55 millimeters and a short flange focal distance of 16 millimeters. Thanks to the Z mount, sufficient light that ensures much higher image quality can be received, enabling the creation of new image expression. Only the Z mount can achieve such an extremely bright lens with f/0.95 aperture. This lens delivers groundbreaking optical performance by providing beautiful bokeh and a sense of depth that have never been experienced before. With the Z mount, higher flexibility in lens design is made possible. For example, a large diameter lens can be located near the image sensor. A lens with a large diameter is able to convey light rays to the image sensor with minimal forced refraction, which is difficult using a smaller diameter lens. The lower refraction contributes to less lens aberration, allowing users to attain much higher image quality. Because most Nikon Z lenses feature symmetrical construction with a centrally positioned diaphragm, which is said ideal lens construction, incident light can be conveyed to the image sensor naturally with moderate refraction. Because the large diameter mount allows flexible layout within the lens barrel, various mechanisms can be incorporated to remarkably enhance lens performance. Evolved image expression is realized with improved lens performance. With the intensified sense of high resolution achieved using a larger diameter mount, even details at the periphery can be precisely reproduced. Via the adoption of a multi-focusing system, high-resolution images with minimal aberrations can be attained, even at the minimum focus distance. In addition, by suppressing sagittal coma flare that is usually difficult to control, point light sources can be faithfully reproduced as point images from maximum aperture. The large diameter Z-mount, developed in pursuit of higher image quality, opens the door to new image expression while realizing next-generation lens performance.
always a joy to be the assistant for somebody who is a peer. There's always something more to learn.
We're here in Los Angeles, and it's myself and 2 other inspiring photographers.
Well, actually 2 that are seriously amazing. I'm the hack that gets to hang out with them. 3 different perspectives.
The same model in one location.
In this amazing space.
And a lot of Nikkor lenses.
Each photographer using the same camera.
The Z6 is kind of my go-to camera.
Sees the same scene with different results.
I'm gonna move you over a little bit. I want you to be comfortable. Yep, just like that. I love where your hands are. I'm hoping to use the 105-1.4 for the majority of my shooting. It is my favorite lens for portraits.
The bokeh on that.
Welcome back to PhotoPlus Expo and the Nikon Theater in the Nikon booth. We are still cranking midway through day 3 here at the show. We're going to keep the education going. We're going to keep the programs going with an amazing Nikon ambassador who just happens to be a phenomenal fashion photographer. She's a director that's won many awards. She's going to talk to you about the secrets to being a fashion photographer. Nikon ambassador Dixie Dixon.
Hello! Aw, thank you so much, Mike. How are you guys feeling today? Feeling good? I am beyond excited to be here. It is so much fun to nerd out with you guys. I'm a big photo nerd. How many of you guys are crazy, crazy passionate about photography? Yes. Why are you guys not raising your hands, some of you? You wouldn't be here otherwise. Oh my gosh, what a cool experience. So just to give you guys a quick little background on me and my work, when I was 12 years old, I was given the Nikon FG camera, a film camera, and I don't think at that moment my dad had any idea what kind of little monster he was creating in the industry. At 16, I had my first big break, Little League photographer, so I would literally be up every single weekend shooting all the sports teams for like a whopping $10 an hour. At 17, I ended up joining the yearbook staff. How many of you guys are on yearbook staff? Any of you? Such a great way to start. And it was funny because I joined the yearbook staff to actually get out of band camp. So I was a saxophone player, and one day I was marching, and I was good at playing saxophone, but I wasn't as good at marching at the same time. So I literally ran smack dab into a tuba player, and it was like a domino effect, and the whole band ended up falling down. And so I realized that maybe that wasn't exactly the thing that I needed to be doing. So I ended up getting into photography, and that became my ultimate passion. 18, I went off to college. I majored in business because I figured I really need to know the business side of things in order to actually make a living at photography. How many of you guys majored in photography? Any of you? Yes, y'all are the lucky ones. Oh, I gotta love that. You know, I ended up graduating college, and I ended up getting a business degree, obviously, and it was interesting because I was so scared to pursue photography. I don't know if you guys can relate to this, but it was hard for me to just jump into it. So I ended up applying for an investment job. I got a job with an investment company, and it was funny because my mentor was like, you know what, Dixie, if you want to pursue photography, like now is the time. Now is the time to go for it before you get locked into a lifestyle. So I ended up turning down that job, and I ended up pursuing fashion photography for a living. And when I really fell in love with fashion photography is when I studied abroad with a world-renowned fashion photographer. So that's when I fell in love with the beauty and the ambiance and bringing brands' visions to life. That is what I truly fell in love with in fashion photography, and that is what I do for a living constantly now. Fashion photography has been a lot harder to break into than I would have thought, and my first big break was actually shooting for a TV show on HDNet called Access Television. I don't know if you guys have heard of the TV show Get Out, but basically I spent 4 crazy long, torturous years photographing swimsuit models in places like Ibiza, Spain, and Miami, Puerto Rico, like all over the world. So this was a really fun gig. Never would I have ever thought I'd be shooting swimsuit models for a living, but it was definitely a fun passion where I really got to create these moments and connect with people. Because as you guys know, photography is all about that connection, right? And creating that moment. So I go to a lot of great links to connect with the subjects that I'm working with. So I always have music playing on set. I always have food. How many of you guys get hangry when you're hungry? Any of you? I definitely do. So you always want to have food on set. It's really important to keep your models fed. And really, I just love creating those beautiful moments. I tend to shoot through moments as I'm creating images, and that's what's really fun. So today I want to talk to you guys a lot of the secrets that I use in fashion photography, so hopefully you guys can apply it to what you do, whether you're shooting portraits, weddings, anything like that. So there's a lot that goes into it. Here's a quick shot of my gear bag. And so I only own prime lenses. How many of you guys freaking love the primes? All of you? Yes. How many of you guys shoot Nikon? Yes, Nikon. So I literally use all primes. I'm always in a hat when I'm shooting. For some reason, that is like my photo uniform. I feel more creative when I have a hat on. It's a weird thing that I have. And then I always have business cards on set. You know, this is kind of like my gear bag, but currently I'm mainly shooting with the Nikon Z7. How many of you guys have tried this camera out? Any of you? It's a mirrorless, amazing piece of equipment. This camera is going to make you want to reshoot everything you ever shot. So we've been shooting with that a lot, and I actually got to be part of the campaign to shoot for this camera, and this was for the Z7, and we ended up shooting this amazing location, but what was really funny was that we had to sign waivers because it was this old abandoned location, and so they made us sign waivers that if we fell through the floor that we wouldn't sue. So it was definitely an adventure trying to get into this location and get these shots. We used a fog machine. This was all natural light, super creative. It was a fun shoot, and we captured that natural light coming through the windows at the end of the day. Capturing those beams is really all about that fog machine. So if you guys go to a party store or something like that, you can grab one of those fog machines. It's like instant atmosphere in your pictures. So it was a really, really fun shoot. This location had all these beautiful textures. You guys can see this image blown up huge on the side of the Nikon booth, which I don't know if you guys, that really shows quality more than anything is when you go to print. It's just amazing what kind of, quality comes out of this camera. I'm always buying things on Etsy and things like that. And it was just a really fun campaign. I'd love to show you guys the video from this as we get more into fashion photography. That was a really fun shoot. So the way that you really get started in fashion photography is shooting model portfolios. How many of you guys have shot model portfolios? Any of you guys? So this is really and truly the way that you break into fashion photography in the industry. And believe it or not, you can actually go to whatever agency is in your town and shoot a lot of their models for free because all the models always need new pictures. That's really how you kind of break into the industry and kind of discover your style. And usually you got to keep in mind that when shooting model portfolios, you got to really showcase the model and not just the clothes, because really and truly the modeling agencies are in the business of showcasing the model and not the fashion, because they want to get their models work. So you really kind of have to show how the models look. And so black and white, that Calvin Klein kind of feel, is usually a really great way to showcase, the models for model portfolios. So lens choice. This is a huge part of fashion photography. I love, love, love the longer lenses for shooting headshots. So how many of you guys have a 70-200? All of you guys, I'm sure. That's awesome. Yeah, so when you're shooting the 70-200 and you're taking a headshot, instead of shooting like super wide, like at 70 millimeters, you always want to go in a little bit tighter. So back up and zoom in to say 105 or 200 millimeters, and then take your headshot. You're going to end up with a lot better results. Do you see how the wide angle sort of distorts her face a little bit? It's not quite as flattering. So you always want to use a longer lens when shooting that headshot, because it just has such a beautiful compression effect. So I'm always using at least an 85 millimeter for shooting headshots. So that's kind of the go-by. So you can get kind of beautiful images. You see how it kind of has that beautiful compression effect. All their features look beautiful. That's really the way that you create amazing, amazing headshots. This is for a hair company. So I'm doing a lot of different work for designers, catalogs. So I don't just shoot fashion, I shoot a lot of different things. One of my favorite things to capture is actually models and cameraman actually in their element. So this is for Nikon to showcase what you can do with these Z cameras. And this is a good friend of mine who's an amazing cinematographer, Nick Utter. And so capturing him in his element. And then this is in Lake Tahoe. This is a really fun shoot for the Z series. So it's a bunch of Z photographers out shooting this beautiful sunset. How many of you guys have shot in Lake Tahoe? It's like freaking gorgeous there. So really amazing location is Sand Harbor. We've shot there a lot. It's a really great place to capture these beautiful sunsets. So we did a lot of different kinds of things here, and just capturing them in their element. Like I said, I don't just shoot fashion. It's a big team that we create to bring these visions to life. This was actually for cellulite therapy, believe it or not. And it's just basic, but it's advertising. And so an ad agency will actually contact me to do a shoot, and then usually they'll have 3 bids, so they'll take bids from 3 different photographers. Then you have to keep your fingers crossed that they choose you as the photographer to bring the campaign to life. So it's a lot of doing that. A lot of word of mouth is such a big thing in this industry, and this was a really fun shoot. This kind of showcases the team and the effort that goes into creating all these advertising productions. On set. That's what I love about photography, is really that connection with people. And if you're not having fun doing it, you're in the wrong industry, because photography is really supposed to be fun. And so it takes a whole team to create these different advertising productions. And keep in mind that I only started out with me shooting a model. It was just us 2 shooting, and I've sort of grown my team ever since. So now I work with a team of people, like a producer who comes up with the schedule for the day. We work with a makeup artist, a hairstylist, a wardrobe stylist, honest, it's a lot of people that, come together to create these different productions. And I actually started building my team. Have you guys heard of modelmayhem.com? Yeah, so I built my team through Model Mayhem, and I've been working with a lot of the same people ever since. I'm very loyal, and I love working with people that creatively inspire me. I think that's the biggest thing when building your team. You want people that are positive around you to bring out the positivity of the shoot. So really and truly, so much of photography is creating that environment and that experience for your clients so they have a really good time creating images. That's my assistant. Such good times. So this is a recent shoot from Margaritaville, Jimmy Buffett's brand. This is a huge lifestyle production. It was like a week-long shoot. And keep in mind, these are all natural light. So this is very simple type of photography, but this sells in the advertising space. These are what pay the bills, this lifestyle type of photography, because so many brands and things like that, like drink companies, beverage companies, hotels, all these people are needing images, and there's just so much work out there. And that's what I really love creating, is just creating those moments. So with lifestyle photography, I always try to shoot through moments. So I will put people in an environment and then let them kind of have fun in the shoot, and then I just capture them in my element. When I'm shooting for like denim brands, this is for one of my favorite denim brands called Panhandle Slim. I do shoot like 4 shoots for them a year, and it's capturing the denim and the sensuality, and it's just a really fun production because I love that whole sensualness. And we shoot a lot of natural light for this particular brand as well. So there's really just a lot of fun in creating these brands and bringing them to life. So do you guys notice the hair, how it's always kind of moving? There's a lot of movement. So I always use a battery-operated leaf blower to create that movement in the hair. You can get these at Home Depot. So if you want to create movement in your images, I'm always using like a hair fan or something like that. So it's always a good tool. I love bringing brands' visions to life. And, it's fun to tell a story with advertising. We're trying to bring out the denim and showcase the pockets and the texture and things like that. So we have a lot of fun on set. This is a lot of natural light. If the light is beautiful in a location, I'm not going to overly complicate it with strobes. I'm just going to keep it really simple. So how many of you guys are doing video? Any of you? Awesome. Video is so important because it will drive a lot of traffic to your website. So even if they don't hire a cinematographer, I will always have my intern film video just for Instagram and things like that. So we put together a little piece. Ross did the cinematography on this, just of this denim shoot. Just like movement and capturing that environment, we're using the Z6 with the filmmaker's kit to capture these kind of video effects. It's really fun. So how many of you guys have heard of the new Z50? Any of you? You guys have to check this camera out. It is insane. It's teeny tiny. It literally was like this large. It will fit in your purse. So I got to do a lot of different shoots before this camera came out, and I got to spend a day with the camera. So if you're more like upgrading from a smartphone or something like that, this is a really amazing tool. It has the DX sensor, and I really enjoyed working with it. It's one of those cameras that's really small, but it's mighty. That's what I always say, because you can look how tiny it is. I mean, this model is tiny, and it's super lightweight, and it's just a fun camera to take around. I'm going to take this with me over to Europe when I go soon, and it's just one of those cameras you can throw in your purse and just take with you. So we created some of the advertising for this camera, which is always really fun, getting to work with the prototype, and we had a really fun production, capturing it in its environment, and this is a lot more lifestyle photography, so I'm doing a ton of this. This has 20.9 megapixels in this tiny little frame, and it shoots 120 frames per second, slow motion video. And then they also launched this cool line of camera bags. Have you guys seen the new Nikon camera bags? These are all available on the website. They're super cool. They're tiny, they're colorful, and they're just really fun to work with. So you can see here how we can create, slow motion video. Have you guys ever worked with smoke bombs? These are really fun, especially for fashion photography or something like that. We're trying to showcase, what you can do with this camera. So, we did these fun little video clips and things like that to showcase like the capabilities. So they'll list these on the website to show, what the camera can do. So I'm always looking for different ways to do that, looking on Etsy and eBay. And these smoke bombs are just really, really cool tools, especially for video. More video for still, I would say, but it's a really fun tool to create with. So, style. This is such a big part of photography, and I always feel like it's a fleeting thing to find your style, but the truth is, you don't have to find your style. Your style is something that already exists within you. You just have to shoot a ton of images in order for your style to unfold organically. So you're going to start doing things over and over and over again that are going to show up in your work, and that's going to become your style. So the more that you can get to know yourself as a person and a photographer, the more your style is going to unfold organically. So you're going to see things that come up over and over again in your work, from the expressions that you love to the type of lighting that you love. I, for instance, love natural light. These are all natural light. And, it just kind of adds to my style. So I love shooting through things. Have you guys ever tried shooting through crystals? That's always a really fun tool. So this is shooting through a crystal. Like, they're called fractal filters. They're really kind of fun to work with. So you can see how you can create those moments. And then really and truly the key to finding your style is shooting personal work, things that inspire you creatively. So I actually went over to France this past summer to work with a really cool photography, Audrey Paris Photo. She had a really cool photo retreat that I went on, and we got to collaborate and create all these fun fashion type of images. And so I'm always trying to shoot personal work in order to add it to my portfolio, because the truth is your personal work is what drives work towards you client-wise. So whatever you show, that is exactly what you're going to attract. So if you're a wedding photographer and you're looking to get into fashion photography, I would have 2 separate websites. Do a wedding website and do a fashion website. Because the truth is you attract what you put out there. It's the law of attraction at work. So definitely want to showcase, your fashion work if you're looking to get into fashion. So I was always shooting this fashion work and promoting that, even if when I was starting out, shooting portraits and stuff to pay the bills. So how many of you guys do a vision board? Any of you? Yes, that's awesome. So I do one of these for every single production, and this helps the entire team get on the same page of every single shoot. So for instance, the top row was the sort of lighting I was going for, and then the second row was the makeup, and the bottom row was the hair I was going for, because it's a lot easier to communicate with images as opposed to communicating, through words. I'm a lot better with creating and communicating with pictures, because this is a very visual type of industry. So I'm always doing these vision boards. And you can see how it comes to life in the photography. Love the natural light, as always. This is at a cool chateau in France. This is just me kind of creating and having fun with it. Lighting truly is the love language of photography. You can make people look amazing with lighting. You can also make people look terrible with lighting. So you always want to light from above. I'm always trying to shoot sunrise, sunset. Those are the magic hours for photography. And these kind of just bring out the beautiful ambiance of the gowns that we were working with. This is in a lavender field in Provence. Such an amazing location. I'm always trying to get out and travel, because travel is really where you find yourself as a person and a photographer, I think, because you are sent out of your comfort zone a little bit. So connection, this is such a big part of photography, and I go to great lengths to connect with my subjects. So I always have that music playing on set. I always am complimenting whoever it is I'm shooting, because the truth is my goal as a photographer is to make every model I shoot step out of the shoot feeling more confident than they were when they walked in, because I want to build their confidence, make them feel amazing so that we create amazing images together. I do a lot of interesting productions. This was actually for Twin Peaks. It's a restaurant, and it's a calendar that they released this year. And a lot of the proceeds go to a nonprofit. So it's kind of funny, the different kind of productions that I'm doing these days. This is for a calendar, and the whole theme was man cave. So we found an epic man cave to photograph these beautiful models in, and believe it or not, this was an all-female crew. So it was really empowering, it was really fun, the girls had a blast. These girls all work at Twin Peaks restaurants, so they got to create and have fun with this production and create some really sassy images. But we really had a good time with this shoot. And so the calendar comes out in a couple weeks, and the people can get it in stores, and so it was a really fun production. Color contrast. This is such a big part of photography. How many of you guys studied color theory? Any of you? So it's such a big part of it. I use a lot of complementary colors in my work. So I'll use combinations of like purple and yellow, because purple and yellow are basically across from each other on the color wheel. So it has a beautiful vibrance about it. It's gonna really come to life in your images if you use complementary colors. So complementary colors, like I said, are just colors that are across from each other on the color wheel. So like blue and orange, purple and yellow. So if you use these color combos in your images, it's gonna have a really cool vibrancy about it and really come to life really beautifully. How many of you guys have ever tried split toning? Any of you? Yes, it's such a fun tool. So I'm actually making the shadows purple and the highlights yellow. So I'm using a lot of different software to do this. You can do this in Photoshop really easily. And I'm also using Skyloom software to do it really simply, but it just kind of gives it an extra oomph, because you can see this is the before, this is out of the camera, and then the split tone version just kind of brings it to life even more. So it's really fun to work with. So always using that. So the last thing that I want to end on is motion. I'm getting a lot more into video, and I know you guys, some of you are into video. I think video is so important today, moving images, and these new Nikon cameras make it so easy to do video on set these days, because you can just take the filmmaker's kit, you put it in slow motion, capture the models in their element, and just capture some amazing video footage. Believe it or not, I started out shooting video with just a little Coolpix point-and-shoot camera and then editing it in iMovie. And they've kind of grown to now doing a production and doing video on every single shoot that we do, just because it drives so much traffic to the website. So I bet you guys are a little curious. This is a really random image. This was for a company called Poopery. Any of you heard of Poopery? Okay. I get some interesting clients, and this is one of them. And it was actually bathroom spray, believe it or not, but it's the high-end version of Poopery called Privy. So they wanted it to look super high-end, almost like a perfume ad. So it was a really fun production. And so we created these stills for the campaign, which was a really fun part of it. These were actually shot at 3 in the morning after the video production. So this model was a total champ. It was a really, really tough shoot. She walked into the casting and she was like, you know what? I want to be the next Pooh girl. So she literally was hired on the spot. She ended up being this really great face for the campaign. And you can see this was shot in a really beautiful bathroom. This is like a Chanel bathroom in the Statler Hotel. So we found a really cool location for these images. So the big part of this shoot was actually bringing to life the video campaign. So they wanted a commercial that would basically promote this high-end bathroom spray. So I actually came up with this idea. I think I was in the shower the night before this meeting with the client, and I came up with this crazy idea to shoot this whole black and white perfume type of commercial with this bathroom spray to kind of bring it to life in a funny, kind of quirky type of way. So I ended up casting a lot of my friends as extras, and also finding people in bars and things to stand in as extras for this particular production. And we ended up creating this whole entire video in literally a day, and then also the stills in a day. So it was one very long day of production, but you can see it kind of come to life in this video. It was such a fun shoot.
Bang, bang, boom. I won't be your waiting hand. I won't be your stepping stone. I don't need another man. I can make it on my own. I don't need you to be king. I know how to make my way. The clock is ticking. Time's running out. I feel it shaking. Oh, can you feel the trembling? Can you feel the room? So tell me, are you ready? How do you like me? I'm gonna make you go bang, bang, boom. I'm gonna make you go bang, bang, boom. Bang, 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 boom, 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 boom. Bang, 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 boom, boom. Are you ready for me? Bang, bang, boom, boom. Are you ready? Bang, bang, bang. I'm gonna make you go bang, bang, boom.
So we had a lot of fun during that one. I've never spent so much time in a bathroom before. It was a lot of fun. And I've also, thank you guys. Aw, y'all are awesome. So it was definitely an adventure. We had to actually scout bathrooms, so it was definitely fun. So I've got a cool kind of trailer out as well if you want to get into fashion photography, and I have a book out on Amazon if you guys are interested. It's about how to break into fashion photography. And here's my contact info. If you guys, any of you have any questions, feel free to email me like anytime. Reach out on Instagram. You guys inspire me. It's such a cool experience being part of this show. And you guys have been so great today. I so appreciate you coming and listening, and I look forward to see you guys more. Thank you so much for having me, guys. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Dixie Dixon.
Thank you.
All right, so the time it takes for us to load up the next program is the time it takes for us to bring up our next speaker. So we're going to take a, what, Roy, a minute break, producer man? 1 minute break, 2 minute break. Come up, grab a seat. Landscape photography is amazing. This guy is the guy to watch. Josh Cripps coming up next.
Much higher image quality can be received, enabling the creation of new image expression. Only the Z mount can achieve such an extremely bright lens with f/0.95.
We are moving quickly through day 3 here at the Photo Expo show. Hope everybody's doing well. How's everybody doing? If you're tuning in live at Nikon Live on one of our pages, thank you for tuning in. We're going to rock this. If you are into landscape photography, we have one of the best in the business. The good news is he's all over the place. He's so hard to get, though, because he's traveling to so many different locations. He's going to bring his passion for landscape photography to you right now. Ladies and gentlemen, Josh Cripps, Creative Travel and Landscape.
Thank you very much, Mike. Huge thanks to Nikon for having me. Before I get started, can I just see a quick show of hands? Who out there is in the audience right now because you love landscape photography? Wow, that is incredible. And who's out there because you saw Dixie's program and you just wanted to stick around and see who's next? Because I got to follow that. So I'll see what I can do. So I am stoked about landscape photography. Like Mike said, my name is Josh Cripps, and I live in an absolutely beautiful, wonderful, magical part of our country, the eastern Sierra Nevada in California, in this tiny little town called Mammoth Lakes, high up in the mountains at 8,000 feet. We're close to the stars, and it is a magical place to be a landscape photographer, and it's a place that I've honed my vision as a photographer. And today, I'm going to be talking to you guys about creative landscape photography. And what I mean by that is not a landscape photo that you took at a funny angle in black and white because you're so creative. What I'm talking about when I mean creative landscape photography is how do you create evocative, personal, unique imagery that comes from the heart and it comes from you. Because landscape photography a lot of times can be formulaic. It can be obvious, it can be straightforward. So if you're ever out in a situation where you have a sky that looks like this and you're in a place that looks like that, it's pretty straightforward. You know what you're supposed to do, right? You put the sky, you put the landscape together, and you get a photo that looks like this. Okay, now is this kind of photography beautiful? Well, some people may argue with me, but I think it is. Is this kind of photography fun? Absolutely it is. But the question is it creative? Well, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But I'd like to pose the idea that if you're just doing what you're supposed to do, if you're taking the obvious photo, is it all that creative? Not sure that it is. For me, where things get a lot more interesting is when the shot isn't obvious. When you don't know what you're supposed to be doing with your camera, basically when the conditions are hard. Because what happens when you get out there and the shot isn't staring you in the face? You have to work, you have to start solving problems, right? And for me, a problem is just another way of saying a possibility to really open my brain to like express myself, man. So, in other words, when you start solving problems in landscape photography or any kind of photography, it leads directly to more personal, more creative expression. And a lot of people like to think, well, if I'm going to be as creative as possible, I need as many options as possible. And it turns out the opposite is true. The more that you limit yourself, the more that your brain starts to go into creative overdrive. So if it's okay with you guys, I'm going to take you through a couple of experiences in my life where we came into a situation with pretty difficult conditions for photography and came away with some cool shots. So I'm going to start off in New Zealand. Has anybody seen a picture of this tree before? Number of people. So this is the very world famous Wanaka willow. And I was there last month on a photo tour with my very good friend John Barclay, and we took our group to this spot. And if you've seen a photo of this tree before, you know exactly what you're supposed to do to take a photo. You're supposed to go in autumn when the tree is covered with these golden leaves. And you're supposed to go when the lake level is high and it's completely covering the roots of the tree, so the tree's coming straight up out of the lake. And you're supposed to go there at sunrise and get this epic light show over the tree. So that's what you're supposed to do to see photos. So this is the kind of thing you're supposed to see. This is the kind of photo you're supposed to take. You get these kind of conditions when you do what you're supposed to do. So we were there last month, early September, which is early spring in New Zealand. And not only were there no golden leaves on that tree, there weren't any leaves at all. And there wasn't enough melt off of the glaciers and the snowfields to raise the level of the lake. So the water is completely out past the tree. There's just a couple of puddles around the base. It's totally unaesthetic. And we got there, completely clear skies. So in fact, it looked like this when we got there. Well, that sucks. I hate this, I want to go home. But that's not an option, right? Because we came all this way to photograph this stupid tree and the stupid lake, and gosh darn it, that's exactly what we're gonna do. So in a situation like this, you have two options, right? You can throw your camera away and go back and have a mimosa, or you can start to solve problems. And so that's exactly what we did. The first thing that you want to do, well, anytime you're out photographing or anytime you're really doing anything in your life, what I recommend you do is take your expectations, pull them out of your head, curl them up into a little ball, and throw them into the lake. And what that does is it allows you to see what's actually there in front of you instead of what you're supposed to see, instead of what you're hoping to see. And when you do that, the characteristics of the scene, instead of becoming weaknesses, they become strengths. Okay, so what are the problems that we're trying to solve here as landscape photographers? No leaves on the tree, no water around the tree, no interesting clouds in the sky, right? So the fact that there are no leaves on the tree, what does that mean? It actually just means that the branches of the tree are far more graphic in nature and create these incredibly beautiful patterns that contrast with those liquid blues of Lake Wanaka. Or, looking a little bit higher up, they contrast with those wonderful whites and pinks of the tree, of the mountains behind. And this is a completely unique, completely non-obvious shot of that famous tree, right? Nobody has this photo. Our entire group is absolutely overjoyed that morning to be creating images like this. Why? Because they're personal, they're expressive, they're evocative of our actual experience that morning. We're not trying to fit the scene into a box. We're listening to the scene and we're responding to it. So that's problem number one taken care of. Problem number two, this ugly, ugly ground around the tree, right? It's really not that aesthetic. In my opinion, there's far too much detail in the rocks that's pulling away from the detail of the branches. And then you have this chaos created by the intermittent rocks and pools and puddles and things like that. So what we want to start doing is thinking, how can we get rid of the things we don't like and accentuate the things we do like? Well, it's far too common in landscape photography to get out on the scene, put our tripod up, and shoot from right here, right? And what happens? It opens up that mid-ground all in front of us. But if we take the camera off the tripod and we put it flat on the ground, go full seal, as we like to say, what happens is you compress that mid-ground completely. And instead of all that chaos from the pools and the rocks, you get complete uniformity in the foreground. Okay, so that's one problem solved. The next problem is, how do we get rid of all the competing detail of those foreground rocks with the detail in the trees? Who likes to shoot landscape photos at f11, f16? We want that depth of field from front to back, right? Well, what if we go the other way and shoot at f4? That throws the foreground completely out of focus, and all of a sudden, we get this beautiful pushing effect. So we go from a situation that looks like this, all this competing detail, to something that looks like that. And all of a sudden, our foreground is much more pleasing, much less competitive detail. All right, now this is a good start, but we can do better, because the fact that we had no clouds in the sky that morning, there's nothing I can actually do about that, but what I can do is be thinking about what's gonna happen next. So any morning when you have no clouds, there's 4 things that happen. You have sort of even blue hour light, then you have what's called the belt of Venus, which appears in the sky opposite the rising sun. Then you have light on the distant mountains, then you have direct light on the foreground. So if I know those 4 things are gonna happen, I can predict a photograph. And so if I have a situation like this, and I go, boy, it would be cool if the mountains in the background were lit up, well, I know that's gonna happen, I just gotta wait for it. And I can take a photo that looks like this when I originally had a scene that looked like that, right? Then what happens next? The sun keeps coming up, shines golden light all over the foreground, all over the tree, and all of a sudden you're able to create images that are not only beautiful and wonderful, but they're completely personal, unique, and original to our experience that morning. Okay, now let's go back to these puddles here in the foreground. It turns out if you do the exact same thing, if you take your camera off the tripod, you put it on the ground, basically put it in the water, next to one of these puddles with a wide angle lens. This puddle here is maybe 2 feet across, but if you get right up on top of it with that wide lens, you can do this. And the amazing thing about a photo like this is an image that would never ever exist if we'd had the conditions we were supposed to have. If we had walked away because our expectations weren't being met, nobody would have photos like this. And our entire group has this. In fact, I think I took the worst image of the entire group there this morning. Now, the only reason we were able to do this, because if you've ever been to the Wanaka Tree, has anybody been there? It's an absolute zoo, right? This is what it usually looks like. You can have 120 people out there in front of the tree. This is what it looked like the morning we were there. Because every other photographer that morning, when there were no leaves, no epic sunrise, and no clouds in the sky, and no water around the tree, they packed up and they went home. And I'm not saying that to criticize anybody, but just to point out that if you only look for what you want to see, you'll never see what's actually there. So this is the story of our entire New Zealand trip with this group. A few days earlier, we're at this amazing place called Mount Cook National Park, photographing from this swing bridge. And this swing bridge overlooks this beautiful flowing river that leads up to a lake, that leads up to these beautiful mountains, to these massive glacier-capped peaks. And this is what it can look like. This is what it looked like a few years before when I was there by myself. This is what it is supposed to look like. This is what it looked like that morning with the group. Completely dead, flat, light. You can't even tell that there's glaciers up there. There's just not a lot going on, right? And it's really easy when you're standing on that swing bridge and it's rocking back and forth and you can't use your tripod because it's moving and it's 28 degrees and your fingers are starting to freeze, to think, well, this sucks. I'm gonna pack up and I wanna go home. But what happens when you do that? 2 things. 1, you don't take any photographs, and 2, you don't have any fun. So instead of looking at the scene in terms of what are we expecting to see, what are we hoping to see, and what are we missing, what can we be disappointed by not having, we start to look at it from a standpoint of what is there? what can we celebrate about this? And what we do have is tons of this steely green water rushing out of this lake, bouncing off of all the boulders, this barely organized chaos, and it's loud and it's noisy and it's energetic and it's a lot of fun. Okay, so what are our problems? No interesting light in the sky, not a lot going around us, pretty easy. Let's get the sky out of there completely. We're on a swing bridge, that's a problem, we're moving back and forth, so we can't use a tripod, but we can handhold with VR at maybe a quarter second, a sixth of a second, and that accomplishes two things. Lets us get sharp-ish photos, and it lets us capture enough motion in the water to bring that energy into the feeling. And so instead of thinking in terms of, well, what are we missing, we can lean out over the bridge, point our camera straight down, rattle off a ton of shots to try to get a sharp one, and all of a sudden you have these amazingly evocative images. And I remember this moment, just like Ron was saying in his presentation earlier, these photographs bring you back to that moment, and it gets inside of you. And I remember all 5 of us out on that swing bridge, rocking back and forth, having an absolute blast. A few days later, we're in a place called Fiordland National Park in this beautiful fairy tale forest. And if there were elves living anywhere in the world, they would live inside this forest. But when we got there, it was a completely clear, sunny day, and this is what it looked like inside of there. So we have these incredible hot spots, these incredible deep, dark areas, and there's these amazing cascades with this rushing blue water flowing down from this alpine lake. And everybody wants to get there and shoot long exposures of these cascades, but in a situation like this, the light just isn't cooperating. Also, as a group, we're not permitted to use tripods in this area. So we can't do long exposures, we can't shoot wide scenes. What can we do? Well, we can pack up and go home, or we can start solving problems, looking for what we do have. So problem number 1, there's too much stuff going on, too much chaos in the scene with a wide angle. So let's get rid of that. Let's put on a macro. Let's put on a telephoto lens. The other problem that we've got, the light isn't uniform across the scene. So let's stop looking at this scene and let's start looking at this scene. And as you walk along, you can find these amazing moments like a beam of light just hitting a pair of ferns dangling over the pathway. And this is the same conditions as this. Same spot, in fact. I just turned to the left, put a different lens on, went black and white, and I get something like this. A few days later, we're in Milford Sound. Has anybody been to Milford Sound? A lot of people. That's fantastic. It's one of the most spectacular places you will ever visit as a person, and we decided to take our group on a scenic cruise through the Sound. Now, we were there in the off-season, so we didn't have a lot of options in terms of departures. I think our only option, in fact, was 11:30 in the morning. And how many landscape photographers are dying to go out at 11:30 in the morning on a sunny day? One hand. It's so easy to say, well, these aren't the conditions that I want to shoot in. I'm not going to get any shots. I'm not going to go. In fact, you can see we forced the group, get on the boat. We're going to go out there anyway. These are the kinds of conditions we're shooting in. It's terrible light, right? You can see there's spray on the front of our cameras. It's really hard to shoot. And the highlight of this entire cruise is this little waterfall right here. Well, little, it's actually 500 feet tall. These cliffs are a mile high. This is the highlight of that cruise, and you start to think, I want to capture a photograph that conveys the grandeur, the beauty of this waterfall. What are the problems that we've got, though? Really harsh light shining right into our cameras, and you can see it's a very tall, skinny waterfall. This photo illustrates that a little bit better. You can see how much empty space you got on either side. So how do we solve the problem of the harsh light coming into our cameras? Well, it turns out that the boat actually solved the problem for us. It goes all the way out through the fjord, and it turns around, and it comes right into the shadow of those cliffs. And all of a sudden, the light becomes totally smooth, totally uniform. Great, that's problem number 1 solved. Problem number 2, tall, skinny waterfall. If I try to get the whole thing in, I have too much extra space. Let's stop thinking about the grand scene. Let's start thinking about what are the intimate moments that waterfall is showing us. And the most beautiful thing about this waterfall, well, a magical part of it, is as the water falls, it starts to turn into mist, and that mist bounces and dances off of the rocks. And as you follow it down, you can see it bounces more and more and more, and the farther down it goes, it breaks up even more and just starts outlining the rocks like this. And this is not that huge waterfall, but this is evocative and unique and representative of something that was speaking to us, to me in that moment from Sterling Falls. But the real magic of Sterling Falls is when the water hits the ocean. It falls 500 feet and it lands right on the ocean. It bounces out in this incredible radiative pattern way that looks like that. And this photo was taken at noon on a sunny day from a moving boat. Because we were looking for what we have, solving the problems. Okay, the boat's rocking, so we need a little bit of a faster shutter speed, but not so fast that we freeze all the motion. We stop looking at the grand scene, we start looking at the little vignettes that are speaking to us, and you're able to create a photo like this. You'd never expect in light like that you'd be able to shoot this photo. And again, this is the worst of any of our group's photos from that day. One last quick story from New Zealand, then I want to move on to something else. The very, very last day of this trip, we went to Doubtful Sound, which is truly one of the most wild, dramatic, and beautiful places you will ever experience your entire life. Now, we had booked this trip months in advance for the group, so we couldn't change our dates. And we're going, what's the weather going to do? Is it going to be rainy? Is it going to be nice? Well, Doubtful Sound is one of the rainiest places in the entire world. And sure enough, we showed up there, and it's pouring rain, and it's blowing 40-knot winds. So this is rain coming down from the top and ocean spray coming up from the bottom. Not exactly the best conditions for photography, right? Especially if you're thinking, well, I'm in one of the most grandiose places in the world. I need to capture grandiose photographs. What that kind of thinking does, it shuts your brain down. Expectation is the death of creativity. You go inside, you have a cup of tea, and you read a book, and you totally miss out on what actually is there, which is an incredible amount of atmosphere and mystique and mystery. And you're able to photograph photos like this from the back of the boat when you're hanging out protected from the wind and the rain. And if we had said, you know what, it's raining too hard, it's too windy, I think we should cancel the trip, well, we never would have been able to photograph like this. And one of the most incredible things about photographing in terrifyingly bad weather is when it breaks, a lot of times you get those incredible conditions, right? So it's hard to predict exactly what's going to happen, but the next morning, after we photographed this, the sky started to open up. And this was, enough to get our little photographer hearts beating fast. But what happened next was truly incredible. Beams of light shining down through the atmosphere, fresh snow on the tops of the peak. And the captain took this boat into one of the most remote parts of the fjord. And this is the ocean. And the ocean itself glassed out to a level where we were able to photograph these mile-high mountains with fresh snow and light breaking up. And we would have never been in a situation like this if we had said, nah, the weather sucks, I'm going to go home. All right, I got a few minutes left. I want to shift gears, and I want to talk a little bit about how this kind of creative problem solving and approach to photography has led me to a new passion of mine, which is photographing the full moon. How many of you guys have tried to photograph the full moon? A lot. That is amazing. Now, how many of you have got results that look like that? Now, how many of you have gotten results that look like this? Okay. Still a lot of people. That's fantastic. And this is cool. The first time you get a photo of the full moon that looks like this, you feel pretty darn good about yourself, right? Wow, look at those craters. I think I'm going to name this one after myself, right? Well, where do you go from here? Because the next time you go out to take another photo of the full moon at night, it's going to look exactly like this, right? So, okay, that's pretty boring. What are you talking about, Josh, about your passion being the full moon? Well, I'm talking about learning to take photos that look like this and photos that look like that. And these are all single frames. These are not composites. These are single frame images. So how many would like to get results like these? Fantastic. So I have 7 minutes and 36 seconds left. I'm going to give you guys a crash course in how to photograph the full moon. So there are basically 4 problems that we need to solve in order to photograph the full moon well. The first of these problems is the moon is huge. No, it's tiny. You see it coming up over the horizon and it tricks your brain, and you elbow your buddy in the seat next to you, go, look at the huge thing, it's the moon is, and then you point your camera at it, and what happens? It's 3 little bright pixels in the frame, right? Okay, so it turns out that the full moon is actually as small as your index fingernail held out at arm's length. So we got to solve that problem. The moon is also very bright. This is problem number 2. Now, photographers, it's so easy. We get into this mindset. We go, I'm going to go photograph at night. What do I need to do? I need a tripod. I need a high ISO. I need a long exposure. I need a wide open aperture, right? Duh, that's what you do at night. Well, when you're photographing the full moon, that results in pictures like this. The problem with the moon is that it's so much brighter than any ambient light. If you photograph exposing for your landscape, the moon turns into this nuclear ball of light. And if you photograph to try to get the details in the moon, the landscape disappears. So how do we solve that problem? Third problem is, the moon isn't that interesting by itself, right? It's very academic, it's very dry. You take this photo once and you're done. In isolation, there's no context, there's no connection. So we need to solve that problem. And the fourth problem that we have to solve for interesting full moon photos is the moon is really squirrely. It moves a lot, right? It never sets in the same place twice. The full moon will only set or rise in the same place approximately twice per year. It's always in a different location. It moves fast, and it doesn't move how you would expect. So if you think the moon is going to set right into that notch and you line up your shot that way, well, guess what? Surprise. It actually sets over there. So we have to figure out how to deal with that as well. But if we can solve these 4 problems, it's a really amazing thing because the moon is such a powerful storytelling element. This is a photo of the mountains in Mammoth Lakes near where I live, and that's okay, that's fine, but look how much more interesting the photo becomes when you add the full moon. So as soon as we can do this, it's a really cool thing. Now let's take a look at those 4 problems. The first one, the moon is not that interesting on its own. Well, solution to that, very simple. Let's put it next to something interesting on planet Earth. And what this does is it gives you a sense of connection. So I don't know if you guys know this, but every single person who will ever look at your photos lives on planet Earth. So if you want them to connect to your moon photos, you need to connect the moon to the landscape connects to the viewer. So this is cool, putting the moon next to some big mountains, but the closer you let the moon get to your subject, the more connective it becomes. This is great and all, but this is better. So what makes a really good subject to put the moon next to? There's really 2 simple things that it comes down to. Something that sticks up into the sky all by itself, that's not blocked in front and doesn't have anything behind it, like these mountains way off in the distance. The other thing you want is your subject to be really, really, really far away. The farther away your subject is, the larger the moon is going to appear relative to that subject. So something like this is a perfect example of a great subject for a moon shot. And if you can get the alignment just right, some morning like this, you can take a shot that looks like that, and that's pretty cool. Now, if you want to figure out how big the moon is going to be relative to your subject, there's a simple rule called the rule of 100. Take the distance from you to your subject, you divide it by 100, that's the size of the moon. So these mountains, for example, they are about 10 kilometers away from where I'm shooting this. That's 10,000 meters divided by 100, you get 100 meters. So in this photo, relative to those mountains, that moon is 100 meters tall. And that's perfect because it allows you to scale your moon shots relative to your subject. Say if you're shooting the Statue of Liberty, you know how tall she is, you want the moon to be on a proportional size, you can figure out how far away you need to stand. And you can do this ad infinitum. You can get back farther and farther and farther. Here's the full moon setting over Mount Whitney, which is the highest peak in the contiguous United States. And this is in a place called the Owens Valley, where you can get back really far. I shot this photo from 26 kilometers, about 16 miles from the mountain. This is 1,500 feet tall, that face, and I want the moon to be big relative to that face. So by getting back 26 kilometers, the moon gets to appear about 800 feet tall compared to that mountain. All right, problem number 2. The full moon is crazy bright. It's as bright as a sunny day. So what we want to do is we want to shoot around sunrise or sunset when the landscape is also being illuminated. We're basically taking the entire dynamic range from the darkest darks to the brightest highlights and letting it get compressed by ambient light until you can capture it with your camera. And the cool thing about this is depending on exactly when you shoot, it also determines the color of the moon. So if you shoot during blue hour, what happens is the moon tends to appear amber in your photos. If you shoot right at sunset, it tends to appear rosy. And if you shoot after sunrise, it takes on a wonderful blue color. So you can actually affect the color of the moon that way. How do we solve the problem of the full moon being tiny? Well, that one's actually really easy. We just get a really long telephoto lens. You can use anything from 200 to 1,000 millimeters. I personally find the sweet spot to be about 400 to 600. So this is a shot at 110 millimeters versus a shot that I took with a different camera about 2 miles down the road at 440 millimeters. And you can see as you get in tighter and tighter, this is 1,000 millimeters. Yeah, the moon is big, it's beautiful, that's cool, but you lose context, right? This mountain could be anywhere. You don't understand what it is. So that's why I like that focal range. The final problem of the moon moving a lot, it can be a little complicated, but the solution is simple. You just need a bulletproof plan. And unfortunately, I don't have time to get into exactly how to do this today. Suffice it to say that I use an app called PhotoPlus that basically tells you where you need to stand in relation to your subject in order to capture that full moon shot. So to summarize here, I just wanted to have these 4 key takeaways for you guys. For more creative landscape photography, get rid of your expectations, stop stressing out over how things are supposed to be, and start solving problems instead so that you can celebrate what's actually there. And I'm totally out of time, but if you guys would like to correspond with me online, I invite you to visit me on the internet. And that is the end of my talk right now. Thank you very much.
Chris.
Woo, we got through it.